Today we are speaking with Gabriella Katz. She bravely submitted an opinion piece into the Jewish News on the 13th of May 2022. Gabi is a 22-year-old studying psychology and law at Monash University. She's a former college captain at Mount Scopus and a Hineni Madricha. She intends to pursue a career trajectory that work towards navigating issues that underlie the vicious maintenance cycles which obstruct equality. Let's preface this discussion with the fact that I don't think that anyone in the community condones any form of child sexual abuse or any sexual abuse for that matter. Thank you so much for your candor and agreeing to chat with us today, Gabi. It was really brave of you to write that article, and we appreciate that you've done so, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question that we have for you today is, what made you decide to speak up?
Okay. Well, I guess first, I don't think that speaking up about truth is a brave act. And I have received quite a few responses, thanking me for my bravery, but it's like not brave to admit that 2 + 2 is 4. So that's something that I'd like to say. What made me speak up was the burning passion and fire that I felt after thinking about the role we all have in creating a safe space for females, for young females, for vulnerable and victimized children, so that, we can have a future of safety and peace. But more personally, I felt uncomfortable with community responses to allegations that had come to light, and I felt like I had a duty to speak out and to have uncomfortable dialogue with people.
All right, so are you more frustrated by the fact that child sexual abuse is still happening in our community despite previous cases? Or are you actually upset about the way it's been handled in the last couple of instances?
I'm ultimately frustrated with the response to previous, most recent cases in the Jewish community within the last year that have felt like a response to distance the community from child sexual abuse that happens in our backyard. That's my ultimate frustration, and the discrepancy between my Jewish community's response to child sexual abuse in the past with Orthodox communities versus things that are closer to home. And I still can't understand the extreme difference in the response to cases that occur closer to home versus ultra-Orthodox communities. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Often it takes time for external investigations to validate, if appropriate, prosecute the accused person. What do you propose an institution or community should do in the meantime?
It's a big one, that.
Yes.
I think an interesting stat that I recently came across from VoiceGar, which is Manny Wax's, he founded an organization that tries to combat child sexual abuse. They have been getting an average of 4 disclosures within the Melbourne Jewish community every week for the past 12 months. By way of reference, there have been 4 to 5 incidents of physical abuse due to anti-Semitism within the last 12 months. So statistically, that means that child sexual abuse is 50% more prevalent in our community than physical assaults from anti-Semitism. And I think something that you can do is educate yourself and be made aware that this is an extreme threat, and it doesn't make sense why our Jewish community and the leaders and the members and the institutions are much more focused on external threats than internal threats, when statistics show otherwise.
That is a very interesting point, and I'm sure one that many of us haven't pondered before.
Thank
you.
That's something. So I think really grappling and making yourself uncomfortable and educating yourself is the first thing that you can do for yourself. But secondly, and without any question, is to provide your support to people that you know have come forward immediately and effectively. And if you can't do that, I think that you need to go back to the first step, which is to educate yourself.
And also I'd say a discussion with our children as to what sexual abuse can look like. That it doesn't have to be a touching thing.
It's a massive spectrum. It's like not an objective definition. It ranges from psychological abuse to physical abuse to emotional abuse. And I think another interesting point that I've come across is that, and touching on the legal side, is that just because something doesn't fit within a criminal activity or a crime doesn't mean that we shouldn't question our laws for not containing it as a criminal act. You know, when young women's safety and health and future well-being are traumatized and jeopardized, we should be questioning how problematic this behavior is. And whilst maybe it's not contained in the law, it's still very wrong.
If there's nothing that the person can legally be charged with, how can we expose the person? Because can't we be charged with defamation?
I think that it's a difficult question to answer that legally, but I guess what a community can understand is that these aren't vague allegations. They're very clear-cut CSA issues.
CSA?
Child sexual abuse issues.
Thank you.
Sorry. And they are antithetical. These behaviours and conduct are antithetical to ensuring the well-being of children. And in fact, they are going to cause long-term harm to children if they are not addressed. And I think that it's imperative that the institutions, maybe if they're not contained in the law, respond with structural changes that can train staff to be alert of red flags in their, co-workers' behaviour, and that they can train staff to not feel bound by the way things have always been. And I think it's all about really the community's response to trying to find justice because it's not being served by the law. And that is why we have such an important role in this, is because some of these allegations aren't contained in the law, but they are so deeply wrong and shocking and disturbing and are jeopardizing a future where children can live safely in our community. So it's all about the community's response for systemic reform and structural changes. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does. I guess we can move forward without naming names, because then we risk defamation. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that? I mean, I think that in your social circles you can do all the naming you want.
Yes.
And that people that are abusing and assaulting and harassing young children as an adult should be called out in their social and local community. Whether newspapers and videos and social media can name people for a defamation purpose, that's a law question, a legal question. But people should get advice to make sure they're not going to get sued. But most importantly is that, we question our laws and we realize that not everything, the law isn't the absolute moral framework and moral compass. Let's be let's be advocates and let's be good citizens. How can we do that? Let's demand more from our institutions so we can cultivate a safe environment for children.
So would you say that is the ultimate solution you want to achieve by writing your article? Or are there more things that you would like to achieve?
I think my article was very therapeutic for me because I had felt very frustrated with the absence of discourse, especially in my local circle, and especially by peers my age who have a stake in this. It's about their future and their potentially grandchildren's future. And I felt very disturbed that no one wanted to talk about it properly and rigorously inquire into what had just happened. And so I wrote my article as a way to diarize those thoughts, and then I was encouraged to publish it. And I think that it has precipitated dialogue recently, but that's not enough. Dialogue isn't enough. And community members need to grapple with their own issues they might have about, the tight-knit nature of our community, but also let's not put loyalty over values like truth and safety and justice. And I think something else important to note is that, there is, I guess, a focus on educating students about inappropriate things, but I think ultimately there needs to be a lot more attention focused on training staff and training educators and training people that are managing and looking after impressionable young kids. They have a significant moral duty to put these red flags in their head, and when they see something that's wrong, put it on high alert so that they can attend to their moral duty of looking after and safeguarding these young impressionable kids. And I think that is really, really, really crucial and imperative for fostering safe institutions where, young children are attending, such as schools, youth movements, and schools. You need the leadership to be on board to train their staff to notice where red flags are occurring.
So Gabby, since you've written the article, what sort of community responses have you received?
Yeah. I've been overwhelmed by the response from the article. I've received quite many messages. I've had many phone calls with people, all different ages and different from different spheres of my life. Some people that I don't know, some people that were victims of these cases, and most people that have personally reached out to me are supportive of the article, or people have disclosed and shared stuff with me, have asked me what they think that they can do. I don't have all the answers for all of these things, but I think the response that I've been most frustrated with is people just, saying, thanks so much, this is so brave, when I think the response that I would love is for people to demand from institutions and to go and engage in dialogue with people and share those thoughts, and how has it made them think, what has it strung with them, because at the end of the day, the article that I wrote does contain a very, very human element to it, and every line is about people that have been personally affected by these cases, and I can understand that it's a lot to grapple with when you realize that your community isn't a utopia. But the bottom line is that let's put our ego to the side and let's deal with the big internal pandemic of child sexual abuse that's in our community. As I said earlier, there are 4 disclosures every week to the Manny Wax Foundation, the Manny Wax founded Voicecar. 4 disclosures, which is probably it is definitely an underrepresentation of what's actually occurring in the community. So I guess the responses have been that people are happy that these thoughts have been publicly aired to the community, and that's, people are very happy that those thoughts are out there and being discussed. But it's not enough to just support the article. What are you doing to ensure that we have systemic reform? And does that answer your question?
It does. And at this point, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming in today and allowing the Social Blueprint to interview you. We really appreciate your candor, both in the community for starting this discussion and from the Social Blueprint. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you.